Hey there, thank you for the comment, and I just want to talk through a few things that you said in your comment. So you wrote, if you don't keep the commandments, you will either be sent to hell or called least in heaven. And then I think you said, don't quote me, so I'm trying to do it from memory, this is what Jesus had promised. And I understand and I respect that you're wanting to accurately portray Jesus's words, I think. I just want to point out that what you've written is a bit different from what he actually says. In fact, in Matthew 5:19, Jesus says the one who relaxes the least commandment will, quote, will be called least in the kingdom of heaven, and the one who keeps and teaches them will be great. See, that's a contrast within the kingdom. That's not a hell versus heaven kind of contrast. When Jesus does warn about hell, he does it in other verses, like in Matthew chapter 5, verses 22 and then 29 through 30, and chapter 10 and chapter 25. It sounds like we have two different themes going on, that these warnings about hell and then this contrast of least and great in the kingdom, that the language of both of those different kinds of themes have been blended into a single statement that Jesus never actually makes. And so you also wrote, I think, that this means that you must also obey Old Testament Mosaic laws, over 600 of them. So where it says murder, you murder, rape, you rape, and then owning humans as property, you better do it. And so I understand that you're pressing the logic, but that's not how the New Testament handles the law. In Acts chapter 15, you should read that chapter because that's what this is about. The apostles, they explicitly reject putting Gentile believers under the full law of Moses. And in fact, in Romans chapter 7, verses 4 through 6, and in Galatians chapter 3, Paul says that we have, quote, died to the law in that sense, and he calls it a guardian until Christ. And the Old Testament, it doesn't command murder or rape ever. So, in fact, Exodus chapter 20, verse 13 says you shall not murder. And then rape in Deuteronomy chapter 22 is treated like a really serious offense, and it's never presented as obedience to God. And then slavery and servitude, when the Bible talks about that, it is regulating a very hard ancient context, and it's not held out as an ideal for God's people to pursue or for God's design for humanity to function. And look, I get it. These passages are challenging, and they deserve really careful reading, but they don't say to be a true Christian, you must then go murder, rape, and own people. And I think Christians also should take obedience very seriously. Yes, I'm not discounting that, okay? So Jesus says, if you love me, you'll keep my commandments. But the Bible also says that all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. Paul says that in Romans chapter 3. So we aim for obedience out of love for Christ while admitting that no one but him keeps God's law perfectly. So ultimately, I think if we're going to warn others about cherry picking, it's important that we let all of the Bible, including Acts, Romans, Galatians, and the Old Testament law itself, speak on its own terms.